Let's bring in Julian Mitchell. He's Managing Director of Multi-Industry Equity Research at Barclays. All right, Julian, Roper, why is it on your radar?
Yeah, so the main, good afternoon, first of all. The main reason really here is that when we screen our sector for high exposure to education and U.S. education in particular, there's a mix of companies selling into the buildings, the physical infrastructure like HVAC systems or fire and security products, building management systems. Then, of course, there's also Roper, a little bit different with that software exposure. And through a number of acquisitions over the past decade or so, they have built up education into one of their largest verticals. I think it's important to emphasize, though, that within education in aggregate, the proportion of federal funding is relatively limited. And you see a lot of the education funding, whether K through 12 or college level and above, that's coming from state and local and also, of course, private sources. But yeah, so when we run the screens, you have a sort of a double-digit exposure in terms of total sales to education at the likes of Roper, Allegion, and some of the HVAC manufacturers like Trane as well.
Right, because you're mostly talking about industrial kinds of companies, but again, they all specialize in different verticals, and here are some that specialize in areas where you think there are going to be cuts. Now, is it the same to talk about cuts, for instance, at the Federal Department of Education, and to translate that into what happens on, college campuses or to HVAC systems across the country?
I think, yeah, there are differences. I mean, I would emphasize that within the HVAC group, for example, so companies like Carrier, Trane, Johnson Controls, to a degree, Lennox, you have quite a powerful tailwind in recent years from the federal government in terms of education spending. And that's really the ESRA, which was a targeted stimulus program aimed at upgrading school infrastructure, not just for sort of comfort in the classroom, but also around improving indoor air quality. And so that has been quite a big tailwind for education investment since 2021. Those ESRA funds are due to run out in 2026. They have to be spent by them or the schools lose that funding. And that's one example of where you have had a very direct federal boost to the upgrade of the school buildings themselves. And there's a question mark around, okay, once that runs out, and if you have less federal spending in general, aside from that stimulus effort unwinding, do you then see some reduction in education spending as a vertical for these companies?
Yeah, across these companies, they have, call it 9% of exposure. Allegiant could be higher at like 21%, but it's pretty significant. Anyone that you think could kind of skirt or dodge the DOGE?
It's a very good question. I mean, I think that particularly someone with that higher exposure to college level plus education, and that's maybe where in the HVAC world you've got some of those larger systems being used for those buildings, and a lot of those might be more private sector funded versus the more kind of day-to-day typical run-of-the-mill K through 12 school where you're dealing with smaller systems.
Yeah, that makes sense, and maybe that wouldn't be although it's not as if they're going to be immune from cost pressures also. Julian, appreciate you bringing us that angle today. Thanks.